We're going to reconvene our meeting in here. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It's a little warm, so we have opened that door. If you get too cold, let me know. I don't think that'll happen, but please let me know. So we're going to go into public comments. We're going to now open the floor for public comments. Members of the public who completed a citizen comment card can speak at this time. When I call your name, please step up to the podium here. Make sure the green light is on. And comments pertaining to individual personnel or individual student problems are not permitted. Please recognize that under the Texas Open Meetings Act, the board may not act on this meeting, on a matter not listed on the public notice for this meeting. So we will start now, and I apologize, I think Mike, is it Gustafson? Mike? Again, if you'll state your name and your address, and Kelly's going to keep time tonight.
My name is Mike Gustafson, and I reside at 4357 Southern Avenue. And I've reviewed the drawings for the new school, and I have one comment to make. Is from the drawing, I haven't been able to determine that there's a surface parking lot for the school. I understand that there's a designated parking facility under the school for the teachers. So anybody attending or going to the school, a teacher, a third party, a vendor, would be required to park in the street. Currently, now there's probably 35 parking spaces in front of Bradfield, which I believe about 6 of them are designated for handicap parking. If a person attended the school, the new school, and was handicapped, they would be required to park in the street, and if they were in a wheelchair, they'd be required to be unloaded and loaded in the school. 1 week before the Easter break, the school had some type of festivity after class, and a food truck was allowed to come to the school. So you can see here, the school truck, the food truck, was allowed to park in the parking lot. So if you don't have a designated parking lot in front of the school, any other future festivities like this, the food trucks would be required to park in the street, which I believe would cause a problem. Another reason you need a parking lot is at this same time, one of the parents attending the afternoon session parked in front of my neighbor's driveway. This is an occurring problem that we have on Southern and maybe some of the other areas. My neighbor called the Highland Park Police Department. They sent an officer out. The officer stayed there for 45 minutes before the car was moved. The officer refused to write a citation to the person owning the car. By not writing a citation to the owner of the car tells me that that's acknowledging bad behavior. So I would like for you to take these matters under consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Cynthia Beard.
Good afternoon. I'm Cynthia Beard, and I reside at 4212 Lorraine Avenue in Highland Park. I grew up in Preston Hollow, but have lived in the Park City since 1980. I'm a residential realtor with over 30 years experience and a founding partner with Allie Beth Allman and Associates. I would like to comment on the importance of architecture, history, and property values. Thank you for this opportunity. As a realtor, I have the privilege to work with families moving to our area, and I can say without question that a driving tour of the Park Cities, which includes our schools, is very compelling. The national reputation of our outstanding school district is well known and continues to attract families to our area, but is not limited to our academic excellence and results. People see firsthand our beautiful parks and pools, sidewalks, the meticulously restored and expanded Highland Park Town Hall, and University Park City Hall, SMU, Highland Park Village, Snyder Plaza, and our lovely neighborhood schools, all reflecting respect for our past and a clear vision for our future. When I drive families by our schools, I can see their reaction without any words spoken. It is all of the elements working together, including our architecture and history, that make the demand for Park City so strong and enduring. This addresses a shared interest or concern, depending on how you look at it, in our property values, which are very much about demand. A recent experience with a family moving here best illustrates the potential impact. Having chosen the Park Cities with their 7-year-old in mind, I witnessed their surprise when I escorted them to the new elementary school on the second week of school in September, asking me if this was a Highland Park school building or something temporary. Disappointment and confusion was evident as they said it lacked the charm and neighborhood feel they had so anticipated. The developers of Highland Park and University Park went to great lengths to create a community that would be the most desirable, with emphasis on amenities we now all enjoy, including architectural sensitivity and detail. I want to express my concern for the impact on overall property values if we build 3-story schools inconsistent potentially with our existing architecture and environment. It would be my personal desire to restore and expand our existing schools. However, I do respect the vote and the decision. This said, in rebuilding, we must reflect the architecture of the community and its history. Also, because of Bradfield's close proximity to our national treasure, Highland Park Village, I feel we have a heightened level of responsibility.
You have 15 seconds.
Thank you. I also urge we consider the effect on property values for the homes around Bradfield that were purchased across from an open green space and will now be facing a 3-story building. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Bryce Beard, and I reside with the previous speaker at 4212 Lorraine Avenue. I'm a graduate of Highland Park High School, class of 1970. And believe it or not, my son is a recent graduate of Bradfield Elementary, the mighty class of 2015. As the owner of an advertising agency, my business is marketing communications. When I survey the communications processes leading up to the November 3rd, 2015 bond election, it makes me wonder, 1, were we moving too fast? 2, were we totally informed with the pertinent details that may have had a bearing on the outcome of the election? Most especially, what was communicated and how was it communicated? The margin was 55% in favor, 45% opposed. Knowing some of the things we know now, would that 10% margin have changed and had a reverse effect on the election? Let me say, I think today the Highland Park Independent School District website does an excellent job keeping us informed of the development processes. We see more realistic renderings and flybys, along with more detailed plans and architectural insights from videos provided by Jonathan Aldis, the architect head at Stantec. The fundamental problem with this is that we were never told of a lot of the dynamics of the architectural plans before the election. A 3rd story at Bradfield was never mentioned. Neither did we see it in renderings. The latest rendering of the new Bradfield school front, shown on the HPISD website, published October 8, 2015, 1 month before the election, only shows 2 stories. Neither was the understanding that the entire school would move to the west side of the campus. For whatever reason, pertinent details such as these were never communicated until after the election. True to marketing form, a very compelling brand positioning, vote yes for the kids, is a sure way to sway a vote from parents and caring neighbors. But after doing some of my own independent research and asking neighboring parents and friends about the current architectural design and change in location, the response I get was, or is, I never knew. I am asking the board to pause, rethink, and adjust, and in that process become more inclusive with concerned members of the community that don't agree with the current plans for the Bradfield and higher. Listen to the voices you hear today, so that going forward these concerns will be thoughtfully considered, even if it means going back to the drawing board, for the sake of the architectural integrity of the Bradfield Elementary neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Melissa Gerstel, I apologize.
It's okay, it's not easy to say.
Well, I sympathize. So.
Hello, my name is Melissa Gerstel, as you said. I am a Bradfield parent. I reside at 6308 Douglas Avenue, just about 6 blocks away from Bradfield. And I'm also a landscape architect with a design firm here in Dallas. And I also happen to have designed the memorial, Johnny's Place, that is in front of the Bradfield Elementary School. So I'm here today to ask that you assign a committee to manage a redesign of the exterior facade of the new Bradfield Elementary School. I think we all know that a new school with new facilities was voted upon, and I don't fight that or want to change that, but I do think we need to look at the architecture of the building and make sure that it's representative of our values as a community. Like our town hall, our parks, our memorials and fountains, the face of our schools is the face of our town. When we put care and authenticity in a building's history and the architectural details, it says we care about education, we care about our children, we care about our legacy and where we came from, and we care about the character and charm of our neighborhood. Now, I know we all share these sentiments, but unfortunately, the new design of Bradfield does not meet the standards of our community. As it stands, the new design does not honor the details and design aesthetic of the Spanish colonial revival architecture that is the signature of Highland Park. If you look at the current drawings, there's no clear entrance to the school. There is not a sufficient amount of architectural details tying to HP's identity. And the size of the school is overbearing, with 3 stories at one end, ceilings that are too high, 14 feet for an elementary school with children who are probably all under 5 feet tall. Especially, well, I'd say especially mine, but mine are pretty tall. And windows that are too small. The design of our schools must be elevated to the highest litmus test of what we as a community hold dear. We must show we've taken great care in the quality and the details of the structure's design from every angle, inside and out. We have one chance to get this right, so I urge you to please reconsider this design and put into place a committee that will provide the highest level of architectural standards that sets Highland Park apart. Let's build a school that represents the values and aesthetics of our community. Thank you.
David Gravel. Again, I'm sorry.
I have the same problem as you. My name is David Gravel. Linda and I have lived at 4509 Livingston for the past 40 years. It is an ancestral home my grandparents built. They raised their family and lived in it for 50 years. My mother is a 94-year-old Golden Scott. My uncle graduated Bradfield. My wife taught there. My son went there. I was even the ice cream man in the cafeteria line. We all know that the Park Cities are a very special place to live, and part of it is that it has a history of excellence. That excellence certainly includes the school system, but it also extends to city services and a city government that actually works. What a concept. There is another extraordinary reason to live here. Our cities have wonderful neighborhoods that offer an almost small-town intimacy right smack in the middle of a complicated, enormous urban jungle. One of our major city assets, then, is our neighborhoods themselves, which is the backbone of any community. The schools are a large part of this ethos and have been so for a long time. Destroying the historic UP Hiram Bradfield schools and replacing them with massive structures that overwhelm the neighborhoods Seems as if the jungle around us has parachuted the museum tower in right next to the National. The UP Elementary School, which I would now call Leviathan on Livers Lane, is the tower. It's one of the towers. You may think it fits right in, unless of course you are the Nasher. Well, how did this happen? Well, in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, the computer HAL 9000 becomes self-aware and begins to decide how the mission should be pursued and begins to outwit the crew. This is what happens when something big, like this project, develops its own beliefs and begins to serve its own ends rather than yours. Somewhat like the murky genesis of the third story. And do not be perceived by architectural palaver. Historic references and subtle reminders do not honor history in the same way a historic reservation or renovation does. These are decorative flourishes tacked on to check that box. There is no argument from me about the need to constantly evolve the process of education and to renovate a building for the emergent practice, at least on the inside. The outside, which faces everybody, should represent the continuity of the beliefs of the founders, rather than trying to be the master of them. An historic reservation of Bradfield and Hire should be our plan rather than destroying them. One side note, I believe this whole process and its conduct has created a divide among the citizenry that will not be easily overcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Judy Dunlap, 4424 Mockingbird Parkway. Yes, I'm so impressed by the comments I'm hearing here today, so thank you, everybody. I would like to request that myself and people who turn in cards, we be notified of any meeting where this is discussed in the future, because I've attended a meeting in the past and heard of no other meetings since then. I'm hoping that maybe a committee will be set up, as been recommended, and anybody who's here who turns in a card or puts their name on the list should be invited to attend that meeting to give input. I want the community around Bradfield attendance area to be the ones who select people to sit on this committee if there's any redesign to go on in the future. A couple of new points I'd like to make. When I drove down Lovers Lane and saw what they're building at UP, I was shocked. I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, it's just gigantic and it just looks so out of place. So if I'm sure you've all been by it, but that's the way the community feels about that. With regard to the parking, I heard that prior to the election that parking would be relieved in the neighborhood when events were put on because they're putting in underground parking. The underground parking, as I was told at the meeting I attended, was 90 spaces. It was only for staff. Well, that doesn't relieve any neighborhood congestion whatsoever. So I have a great concern about that. And I think maybe they need to consider putting in maybe a larger underground parking, because if you're not relieving the neighborhood, then there's a loss of benefit there that the community expected, I believe, one of the reasons they may have voted for this. Also, I'm not happy that Bradfield is being moved down to Armstrong as opposed to the current location. And I also want to ask, considering we have tornadoes here, is there any thought been given by the engineers with regard to safe places if a tornado were to hit in the middle of the day when our schools are full of children? I would like to know that, because for every school, obviously Bradfield hasn't been built yet, but what it has been engineered as a safe place for our children to go to, chances are if there's a tornado warning, there won't be time, nor would it be required, or the principals want kids to be going home. I'd like that looked into, and I'd like hopefully a response on that. I'm also, in a small thing, disappointed as a former 25-year elementary teacher. One of the things I loved about Bradfield when I moved here from California was had an auditorium for the wonderful events that go on, and I learned that they're completely eliminating the auditorium, that there won't be one at the new school. To me, that's going backwards in a design for modern, updated, wonderful schools. So once again, I'm here to represent, my family and other neighbors, and I'm so excited about the people who are here. And I think that we shouldn't be in any rush. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board. We have an opportunity to do that for Bradfield. And what's the hurry? What's the big rush? If we need to go back and start over, I think that's what we need to do. We need to
Still advertise.
the people in this audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Ken Tippy?
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. We've been here 50 years. All of my children went to Highland Park School. I've got 2 granddaughters. One's a senior. Yay. Glad for that. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. Jan and I have talked about it, and the school just doesn't fit our neighborhood. Our kids that walk to school, and we love Highland Park. Thank you.
Grace Niemeyer?
Hi, I'm Grace Niemeyer. I live at 7908 Stanford Avenue. Like many here, I went to Bradfield, as did my brother and my sister, although I went the longest because I was in the first kindergarten class and we went through 5th grade, so 6-year history of Bradfield. My dad was the room dad, my mom was a room mom. For just about every year they worked, and mom did the cafeteria, dad coached the Y sports. Just have a wonderful history with Bradfield. I remember in 1975 in 4th grade, when we had the big 50-year reunion, I remember we got to paint trash cans at 1925, 1975, and I got to be one of the ones that painted because Dad donated the paint. And it was just a sense of history, and I am hoping that our kids are still having the sense of history. I have, both my daughters have gone through, well, the youngest one's a senior, so we're almost through. But in the sense of wanting our kids to have a sense of history, I think about, yes, we could tear down and start over, but then I think about, why can't, I think we all agree we want the very best schools for our kids. I mean, I think everybody in here agrees with that, but the very best doesn't have to be brand new. I think about places like the White House, the state capitol, the Pentagon. Those are by no means new, but they run the greatest country in the world. So, thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Nancy Shelton?
Hi, I'm Nancy Shelton, 3913 Miramar. I live in a 104-year-old house, so I guess you might anticipate what I'm going to say. My husband's father, all 3 of my children, started at University Park Elementary. It's gone now. There's no historic touchstone for them anymore. I agree with Bryce Beard. Pause, rethink, and adjust. It is so important to preserve our history, our architectural history. I don't believe in 3-story schools for our neighborhood, and I believe that if there is any way at all, we should save the historic facades of our schools. I think this would be an important thing for all of us. Thank you.
I'm Emily Shackelford. I live at 4405 Mockingbird Lane. I'm here again tonight to request that you reopen the dialogue pertaining Bradfield's design. I live in the 4400 block, as I mentioned, in precinct 2200, which is a precinct that lies adjacent to Bradfield that voted against the bond. That is very impactful. As Bradfield neighbors, we have done our best to remain graceful in defeat. We put faith in your leadership to bring us the best plan for a new Bradfield. I need you all to understand, plain and simple, that until recently, many residents are unaware of these design plans. How can that be? I've personally taken the time to notify my neighbors and friends of the changes for planned Bradfield. I've done this because I care deeply about Highland Park, and it worries me that our new building will engulf our charming neighborhood. Our Bradfield community is finally learning the news about Bradfield, that it will be 3 stories and on the west end of campus. They're learning it from Facebook groups, emails, and door hangers. I wish instead they had received this news from our school district. The district notified residents within 200 feet of Bradfield. There were just 137 notices sent. There was also a fall Bradfield PTA and Dads Club meeting where Stantec presented their plan. It is so sad to me that Bradfield designs have changed over the past year, and many people are unaware. I've spoken directly via email to our district communications director. I appreciate that he acknowledges that empty nesters and residents that don't receive regular communication from our school district. So to fill that gap, you all have included a facilities update in the printed HPISD newsletter that is sent to every household in our district each quarter. However, nowhere on these quarterly updates or on the HPISD website does it overtly inform neighbors that Bradfield will be 3 stories and on the opposite end of campus. You have to click through a YouTube to realize that. Instead, the renderings give the appearance of 2-story buildings, and quarterly updates only include 1 or 2 sentence summaries, and the website only shares feel-good bullet points that we all want for the new Bradfield. I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful you all are listening and will make this right. I'm hopeful that there is still time for you to reach out to our community with the real headline, the size and location of the new building, not good feeling bullet points. I'm hopeful that you will truly listen to what our neighborhood wants and that you will take action and will not reply to residents that time has passed for community input. You all are great people, and you all can make this happen. We want a state-of-the-art facility in our school's current location. Please willingly invite and accept comments from architects who are experts in designing buildings that reflect the traditions of our community. If there is a will, there is a way. I respectfully appreciate your consideration and thank you for your service to our remarkable Highland Park schools.
And I'm going to go out and let Lindsay DeGiuseppe.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Not average, like my GPA.
Okay, hi, I'm Lindsay DeGiuseppe Bowman, and I live at 4352 Mockingbird Parkway, and I'm a Bradfield mom. I own my own business for the last 13 years, Contemporary Ballet Dallas, which is at Mockingbird and 75 down the street. I understand that the kids need a new school, but I do have concerns. I did grow up in Dallas. I did not grow up in Highland Park. I went to St. Rita. I went to Ursuline Academy. And I grew up in Preston Hollow. So not a shabby area, but there's something that is nice. Highland Park is so beautiful because of the community and the sense of community that it has. I didn't have that in Preston Hollow. You know, everybody lives everywhere that goes to private schools. They live spread out. Bradfield, Highland Park schools, all the Highland Park schools, it's really a cool sense of community that I love, that my children are part of. And I feel like not following along those guidelines of rebuilding a school is a mistake for the town of Highland Park and University Park. My concerns, my main concerns are moving the location from the east side of the campus to the west side of campus because it's going to be in front of my house. And the 2 blocks, like my whole block is going to be the school. And I think the parking garage is going to be like, the entrance will be right across from my house pretty much. So my concerns are, it should not be relocated. When I bought my home, I'm facing a field. I've been facing a field for the last 8 years of my life. Hearing the kids play across the street when I'm at home during the day, if I run home to get lunch or whatever. I love that I can watch my kids run across the street. I mean, I love that, you know, it's going to take down my property value if you put the school in front of my house. I don't like that. The parking garage entrance on Mockingbird, where it's going to be located or planned to be located, is too close to the tollway in my opinion, because it's going to make that whole 2 blocks to the west really bad. even worse than it already is. Also, where are kids going to, or where are parents going to park in the morning to drop off their children? They usually park in the Highland Park Village empty parking lot, the one that's there for extra parking, and they walk their kids to school. So now they're going to have to walk all the way across the street and all the way down the street to the front door to drop off their kids. So I don't think that's more convenient. I understand they're trying to move the school down the street because of the pickup drop-off situation. However, I would rather wait on Douglas than have to move the entire school. Traffic, the businesses and traffic on Douglas. Moving the school to the west side of the campus leaves a field on the east side of the campus. On Douglas, there's a lot of car drop-offs, truck drop-offs, deliveries for all those businesses. It's really loud. There's always stuff going on Douglas. My concern is that when we have football games and basketball or whatever, soccer games and all those things in the field, it's loud. It's going to be loud with all these extra trucks and stuff on the street. It's going to inhibit the games and it's going to be distracting.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay. Thank you.
Kristen Woolery.
Hello, my name is Kristen Woolery. I live at 4504 Livingston Avenue. I am a Bradfield parent, and I'm a current member of the Bradfield PTA Executive Board. I am also an interior designer with a BA in design. I have renovated and preserved homes as well as consulted with clients and builders on new construction in the Park Cities for over 23 years. In September of last year, Jonathan Aldis of Stantec presented the design of the new Bradfield to the PTA board members. I immediately expressed my concern about the design of the exterior. As a member of the Bradfield PTA Executive Board, the fact that my voice was not heard shows the disconnect between Stantec and our community. During the PTA board meeting in September, and on the current HPISD website, Aldis and Stantec promised to have revised plans for the new Bradfield finished by December or January. It is now mid-March, and we have seen nothing. How can the district move forward with the destruction of a 90-year-old piece of our town's history without a clear plan of what is replacing it? We are less than 3 months away. The existing plans for the new Bradfield do not reflect the Spanish colonial revival architectural style of the original Bradfield. There are several key elements of Spanish colonial architecture that need to be included. The windows, the arcade, the Spanish tile roof, stonework, arches, and painted tile. These elements are not included or incorrectly represented in the new design. The windows on the new Bradfield are too small and are not double hung. They are not to scale to the massive structure that's being erected. The divided lights are not historically correct. There are hardly any windows on the north and east side of the school. Even the iconic quatrefoil, the symbol of the town of Highland Park, has been omitted. Quatrefoil windows are a major design element on the entry of the existing Bradfield that are not used in the new design. The Spanish tile roof is only used in a few areas and only on the primary entry of the school. An arcade, by definition, is a series of arches supported by columns to shelter a walkway. The proposed arcade is at the front of the school. It is full of hardscape and oversized planters and is not inviting in any way. The beautiful cast stone that is prominent as a prominent design element on the 91-year-old building is not well represented in the new design. They promised to save 2 cast stone entries, but what about the stone elements around the windows and between the floors of the school? There are arches at the entry of the new school, but they are not duplicated anywhere else. There are 4 sides to this structure, and all 4 sides should be considered in the design. Painted tile is another significant element that has been omitted.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Deb Weatherwax. I live at 4421 Mockingbird Lane. We're about 5 houses down from Bradfield. And both of my daughters recently graduated from Bradfield, and we have fantastic memories of the school. And I understand the need to rebuild the school. I'm excited about this opportunity. We moved here 12 years ago specifically for the Highland Park schools and because of the character of Highland Park. We love this town. When I heard about the plan to make it 3 stories and to move it to the west side of campus, along with seeing what has been done to UP, I was mad. I was mad at myself for not having been informed, for not having been involved. And I've since learned that it wasn't just me, it was my neighbors as well. A lot of them didn't know the specifics about what the plan was, and now I have a better understanding of how that transpired. I'm concerned about my property values and those of my neighbors, that our beautiful historic school will become a Walmart, that moving away from the existing commercial structure at Highland Park Village toward the west side of campus is an arbitrary solution to the carpool challenge. I've heard several other recommendations to fix carpool that does not require moving a school. Please reopen the discussion to review the proposed size and location and the data supporting both of those arguments. And thank you for all that you do and for your consideration. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, Kelly Perkins, I'm sorry.
Hello again, I'm Kelly Perkins. I live at 3801 Bryn Mawr Drive, and I have 3 children. I have 1 at Higher and 2 at MIS. And previously, I've come and spoken to you predominantly as a parent. Tonight, I want to talk to you professionally. I have been in the private client asset management business for 25 years. I own my own private wealth firm. I'm a managing director. I manage multi-generations of families' wealth. I build a plan, I sit down, I present it, and the client accepts it or denies it. This bond was a plan that we accepted. I would not be able to go back 6 months later and say, you know that plan, I scrapped it. I'm going to go bet on horses in South America because I think that's a better thing. You have the same fiduciary responsibility to this community to uphold and to communicate and to reflect and to respect this community and our wishes. It is our money. These are our children. These are our homes. This is where we all have to live. And what I'm hearing is this growing concern that everyone feels like it was a bait and switch, and there's this rush to make changes that were not in keeping with this amazing facilities committee based of alumni and parents and members of the community that spent months coming up with a plan that was ultimately voted on in the bond. We really would like for you to pause and reflect and adjust and really take a look at what has transpired and hear that the community is, it started with a few voices from one school. It is growing, and the concern is mounting, and we are entrusting you to help bring the trust and our community back together. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Kenneth Reimer.
I knew I'd go after her. That was excellent. I'm Ken Reimer, 5700 Armstrong. Thanks for your service. I've had 4 girls go through Bradfield. When Mockingbird Lane was being proposed, reconstruction of it, we did a whole lot of work on that. We worked with the city very closely, and we looked at it and we said, who wants this? What are the details, and can we trust the process? We knew that there's a lot of pressure from the city of Dallas, a lot of pressure from commuters, a lot of pressure from TxDOT, a lot of money to be made by architects, engineers, and it seemed like we were the minority, the people that especially lived along Mockingbird or lived in Highland Park. At the end of the day, I think what happened was a great result, and I really learned to trust the process. I think the mayor did a great job He heard us all the way through the end. So I just really learned to trust the city and everything it did. I don't know if you guys remember they were going to put a tunnel underneath Mockingbird at one point in time. I went to those meetings. I know that we did some research on people who wanted it. It was a group that called themselves a Tunnel Authority. It was a private enterprise. We asked what were the details. They weren't going to pay anyone for the rights to go into their land. It wasn't going to reduce any traffic. And I thought, well, this can never happen. Luckily, there were some very smart people in the room. One of the fellows had worked for the Transit Authority in Manhattan, and he asked where they were going to vent this. And of course, that was some information they weren't going to be very forthcoming with, but it turns out they're going to have to put smokestacks every so often, and that never happened. So I think that process worked fantastic. And then when it came to Bradfield, I got to say, I didn't do a whole lot of work. I think I relied on the trust I had before. I'm usually very involved. I knew that Stantec wanted it. I knew that they're a giant company. I knew that they were well funded. I knew that they were probably funding this vote. I trusted the historical side. It never let us happen. I couldn't believe adults would tear down that beautiful school. I trusted they would know the details. And I actually called, I got a list from some people that, there's like 30 people on the flyer that said vote yes. I called a bunch of them. I found no one that knew anything that was going on. I found people that did not know they were on the list. I found people that didn't want to be on the list. I didn't find anyone who knew what was going on, and nor could they know. They didn't know that there was 3 stories. They didn't know it was going to be, they couldn't know. So my request is, gosh, pause this thing and please do the right thing, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Ken. Renee in the letter A.
Hello, I'm Renee Arumugam, and I'm a new resident to Highland Park. I lived in a similar city like Highland Park. It is the Lake Cities area. The issues that Highland Park has are pretty similar to Lake Cities, and I raised 2 of my kids in the Lake Cities area, and some of you may know it is the Lake Louisville area, which is Lake Dallas, Corinth area. And for a long time, I've worked in downtown Dallas. I'm a professor at Dallas County Community College, but I refused to bring my kids anywhere close to Dallas because of the ISDs and the structure of the city. But a couple of years ago, I discovered Highland Park, and I, my son graduated, and I moved to Highland Park about a year ago. And one of the things that I enjoyed about raising my kids at Lake Cities is because of the community ship, the little town feel to the whole community. And I was very surprised when I drove around and discovered that Highland Park is building a new school system, an elementary with 3-story building. Now, it's for a reason why elementary schools are not ivory towers. We don't raise them high. We keep them on the ground. Now, as an educator, I know the social-psychological impact of children transitioning from home to school. And elementary schools are the most important part of their development. So if you think of buildings, huge buildings, 3-story buildings, the impact of huge buildings with transporting kids from one level to the next level is detrimental to young children. So I would like to kind of encourage the committee to say perhaps put a committee together to study the impact of having a building like that and placing little children into a structure of that nature. And I think that would be, I think we would discover that it's for a reason. If you go all across Texas, we don't see elementary schools that are 3-story high. Thank you.
Nathan Wood.
is Nathan Wood. I live at 4016 Southwestern Dallas. Thank you for your service as well. I would like to address my concerns. As a fourth-generation Dallasite, my grandfather graduated from Highland Park. He's one of the, I guess, inaugural students at the former University Park Elementary. He is in his 90s now, and you can imagine his surprise when we drove him by the new building, the massive structure with zero architectural integrity. I would ask each one of you, we know the vote has been passed, we know we're going to get new schools, but I think if you would look in the mirror and ask yourself, would people have voted for this if they had known three-story schools were going in their backyards? My kids will go to Higher. I walk them to school in the morning, and Higher is one of the only elementaries that is not bound by a major road or thoroughfare. It sits smack dab in the middle of a residential community. Installing a three-story structure will absolutely hurt the integrity and the charm of this community. Growing up in this town, going to SMU, there was only one community for me to raise my family in, and I chose and put my trust in the Highland Park School District that you guys would have first-class facilities, first-class educators, and create an environment that reflected the community in which we live. Stantec is an excellent architect at formulating and rubber stamping institutional buildings. Highland Park is not a rubber stamp community. You guys need to look in the mirror. These are 100-year decisions that you are impacting. These will happen for generations after. I've reached out to you guys via email. I've requested face-to-face meetings. I'm not here to obstruct development. I'm a broker with CBRE. I've been a broker for 20 years. I'm also a developer. I build buildings. I am pro-development, pro-new buildings, but it has to be responsible. It has to be architecturally significant, like our community. And what you guys have done is you have taken our elementary school population and you have built 2 new schools that are institutional, they are out of scale, they don't have a lot of natural light, and they're 3 stories in structure. I'm begging of you and asking you to really understand that this is a 100-year decision, that these buildings are not fitting of the neighborhood, they are not significant, and they do not reflect our community. You need to pause, rethink, and adjust this plan. And what if... Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Jan, Tippy.
Hi, I'm Jan Tippy at 4238 Potomac. Well, I don't have too much to say. Everybody's already said it, but I would hope that we could pause and think this over again. And I would think there was an addition added some years ago to Bradfield, and just an idea, but couldn't we add something on at a second floor to that and add a little bit more out to the side instead of moving the whole school? Why not renovate what we already have? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jan. Randall, is it Rathon?
Thank you, board, and thank you to all my neighbors for coming. I know everybody's ready for dinner. My name is Heather Rattan. I live at 4425 Mockingbird along with my family. I really echo what I've heard here. So well put. We've heard from a realtor, a design specialist, so many articulate people saying, this is not appropriate for our community. Unlike the other people who have spoken, I'm not from here. I was born and raised in El Paso. It's a dusty border town. When we take our daughter to visit her grandparents, she's shocked I'm so happy to be here, and we moved here as soon as we could afford to. It's beautiful and amazing. It has character and charm, and I just echo what our neighbors have said. We don't want it to be devoid of that character and charm. And a number of people have mentioned small details about what end of the property the building's going to be on. All these things, whether it's going to be architecturally significant, all these issues. We can bring them up in a big forum like this, but really it should be a small, talented committee. We have so many smart people in our community. We have architects, we have realtors, we have designers, so many people who are so talented. Why don't we avail ourselves of their ideas and their input and reach consensus so that in the end what we have is something that's beautiful and new and architecturally relevant. What happens at Highland Park Village, the things that they do there to modernize it while still keeping it historically significant are amazing. We're smart. Why can't we do that with our schools? Has anyone seen our county jail here in Dallas County? Yeah, Lou Sterrett, the Lou Sterrett jail. When I drove down Lover's Lane and I looked at University Park Elementary, the long, narrow windows so that the inmates can't jump out. When I saw that structure, those are the same windows that are on the Lou Sterrett jail. Now, hopefully it won't be the same chocolate brown color. Hopefully it'll have some better landscaping. But that's the first thing I thought of was Lou Sterrett when I saw the new structure. Again, echoing what my neighbors have said, we're smart people. We need to convene a committee of talented people who deal with these types of issues and come up with something beautiful and appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And Heather, could you tell me your last name again?
Yes, it's Rattan.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Joe Shannon.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your service. I'm kind of torn because I think anything I say is going to repeat pretty much what's been said already. So I'm leaning towards what happened the night I found out it was going to be 3 stories, because I remember following closely the bond. I remember voting against the bond. But being at peace with it because it was going to be 2 stories, and all of the things that everybody here said before, Highland Park and University Park, by the way, I'm a contractor, developer, have built homes here for 20 years. Anytime there's something that's like this, I have to apply for a variance, and everybody within a country mile knows that variance. There's signs put up, hey, I'm going to do something you're not going to like. That hasn't been done here at all. But I'm going to describe what happened when my neighbor came to my house. She came, explained to me that it was going to be 3 stories, it was going to be moved to the end, and I looked at the website, and there was no mention of that. And I said to her, because we're friends, I was like, I'm going to go shut the door and come back out. When I step forward, just kick me in the groin. Because that's what that felt like. So everybody's being placating and nice and honest, all that stuff, but that's what has happened here. Y'all have kicked us all in the chin. It's not disingenuous, it's dishonest. You absolutely know the question that was brought up a minute ago. If y'all would have presented it very clearly and abundantly, hey, you're getting 3 stories on any of these schools, nobody within 75205, 75225 would have ever voted for that. Ever.
Scott Dabney. Caitlin, we got 2 that you haven't seen. So.
Okay. Hi, board. Thanks for letting us all talk here. Enrollment continues to go down. Do what? 4,000 Colgate. Enrollment, no one's really talked about this, but enrollment has been going down for 3 years now. If it planes out right now, all right, and if it does plane out right now, then maybe it's going to keep going up some. But if it does, by the time this is all done, you're going to have 11. And look at them. Go look at it. It's public. 1,100 empty seats.
that.
Do you know how we pay for our maintenance and operations? Each seat, you know, if any of y'all kids, they don't want you there past 9, you don't get paid the daily seat deal or somewhere around 9, to be able to, you know, we gotta have for M&O. But I'm not sure how many of y'all know that, but as far as hire goes, there's some specific things, besides like not being on a major street, it's 1 story instead of 2 already. But the lots are so big in that particular area. I keep hearing that, you know, enrollment's gonna go up again. Well, maybe in some places not necessarily higher, because the lots are so big, the houses are so expensive, unless you're lucky and have money coming down. When you're in elementary school, it's hard to have enough money to buy the big houses that are so big over there. Some of the houses too at Bradfield, but I mean, it is maybe when you get to junior high or high school, you've made some money. And then, you know, people all over are combining lots, you know, and people are pulling their kids out of school after you know, some that don't do that well in school because they're, you know, I've already been through that with them. There's only one person to help with Section 504 students, which some of y'all know that in here, some of you don't. So people end up sinking, they pull the kids out of school after the kid loses his self-esteem. Then you got larger land and higher, so it'd be easier to do a 2-story like Armstrong, because it's bigger floor plates. I'm a real estate guy, have bigger floor plates, don't have to go 3-story. Then, and like I said, then you've got Stantec. I still don't know how Stantec got in there without a competitive bid. And then, you know, that's pretty much what I had to say. I don't want to go over, but Jim Turner originally said you had 8,000 students to pay our M&O, and we got 7 now, I think. And if we can't pay our M&O, we're going to bring people in from the city of Dallas. What the hell are we going to do? You know, I don't know what we're going to do. I've heard some of the teachers can bring their kids into school. Maybe that's not that bad, but what else are we going to do?
Your 3 minutes.
Yeah. And so anyway, keep that in mind. Don't think. You don't need to make any stories.
Robert Dixon.
Okay, I did have the opportunity to talk to Highland Park City Council about a few things. I was calm and collected, wasn't I, Jim? Well, I'm not anymore, and I wasn't going to say anything today. It's been really nice to know and hear what's going on. Oh, I've got all the history everybody else has of my family. We even have an original log cabin sitting in one of our, we have 2 houses here, one of our in the back. So a lot of history in my family with Bradfield, or my family, we got all that. We live across the street at 4345 Southern Avenue. Live across the street from Bradfield for over 35 years, I think it's about 38 years. Been in Highland Park. I'm an old Corpus Christi boy. I came in here. Been married 44 years, been in Highland Park at home. I never once in my life thought I'd see something like this in the Park City. And I said one thing in the council meeting, and I'll stick to it. And I said the decisions that have been made at this school district, each one of y'all, have made, is going to be the downfall of the Park City. It scared people. They didn't know what the hell was happening. I've got a whole street of people that are scared to death to even come up here and say anything. That's why there's only 2 of us that came up here today. And my neighbor, God bless him, he's so afraid, he's the one to talk about parking. All we're doing on Southern Avenue is deciding whether or not we're going to lose, how much money we're going to lose. We have one house, quite frankly, we've already lost. We've calculated, we've lost $1.5 million on one of our houses already. There are empty lots all over Highland Park, and that's a fact. Now, when this junk goes up, this junk, my son's an architect. He specializes in architectural preservation. He worked in New York, now he's in Newport. He said it's going to be a piece of junk. He said, the idea of who in the heck came up with that? And he went just through one future problem after another with that kind of decision. So you guys are going to do what you want to do. But I want to tell you, everybody on this board, that we're not happy, and we'll never be happy, and it's only going to get worse. This thing is a fiasco. And each one of y'all are responsible for it. And I don't need 3 more minutes or 1 more second. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We're going to move into board announcements and committee reports. If you have an agenda, you can follow along. At this time, we typically take a pause for those that don't want to stay and listen, but you're welcome to stay and listen as we go through the rest of our agenda.